Hi there. Okay, so it's been a little while since I've posted a video, and I do apologize. Trying to get a book made takes a little bit of time. Anyway, moving right along. The last experiment video that I made, the Self-Experimentation Chronicles episode 5, I talked about my next step, which was going to be in the realm of self-hypnosis. So the reason why it took me so long to make another video is because my plan was to use self-hypnosis as a technique for a couple of months and then report my findings. I will go ahead and report that I made a track to put myself in hypnotic trance, and then essentially what I was doing was I was using the same concept that a doctor, whose name I'm afraid eludes me at this moment, used to hypnotize women and make their breasts larger, which he did see success from. 44% of the women in the test group actually sustained larger breast size. So I was using the same concept to try and make my muscles bigger. Do not laugh at me. I was simply attempting to move out of the realm of strictly cognitive enhancement and see if I couldn't affect physical processes. So I made this track, put myself in hypnotic trance, and then attempted to increase blood flow and affect the production of certain chemicals that build muscle in my body. What I have to report from that is the very first night I did it, the next day I hadn't worked out yet. I also hadn't been in the gym for a little while because of Christmas holiday. The very next day I went to the gym, and I did actually feel slight soreness in my muscles. So at that point I was excited. I was like, wow, this must be working. And I can see the potential. But unfortunately, I lack patience, and I didn't make enough time to follow through with that. Well, primarily because every time I listen to the track, my voice puts myself to sleep. So I end up falling asleep in the middle of it. Anyway, it's something I can see the potential in, but I also understand why it probably is a lot more effective when administered by a professional. I feel like somebody would have to have a tremendous amount of patience and time to dedicate to something like that. While I'm discussing my less successes, I want to go ahead and also mention that I did do some experimentation a few months back before I started messing around with nootropics and brainwave entrainment with guided imagery. Guided imagery, I basically would focus on certain images and attempt to communicate with my subconscious in hopes that that would affect, I guess, my outward actions and activities, in hopes that would bring about positive change. My focus was to increase my income. I had a certain number in mind. I only missed it by like $200, but the changes were so incremental, and it was very difficult for me to rein in my thoughts. The brain is a wild beast to attempt to tame. So I didn't write anything or make a video about that because I didn't feel like the changes were very profound, and I really wanted to kind of wow everybody with something a lot more profound than that. So I thought I'd go ahead and mention that too. Guided imagery, self-hypnosis, definitely methods that work. I can see the potential. I have research that backs up that they've worked before, but I am here to say after this experience that not every method that Get Limitless promotes is going to be 100% effective for every person. I feel like just like anything else, you have to find what works for you. The Buddhist monks illustrate this better than anybody can. Their method is a much longer road, meditation. If you or I were to meditate right now, we wouldn't all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and then our gamma brainwaves activity be through the roof, and all the other interesting changes that happen in the body to a meditator of much experience. However, if we dedicated our lives, our time and study to the process, then eventually the benefits of meditation on that level would be ours, and that was their choice path. I believe mine right now is much more leaning towards nootropics. So that brings me to the next topic. The reason I made this video was to let you know that I went ahead and decided to take an Adderall, which I totally have a prescription for. Anyway, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and experiment with that, because if you do research on nootropics, mainstream information, the stuff that actually hits, a lot of the major publications, is always on either modafinil or Adderall. So I had to see what the hype was about. I mean, millions of college students can't be wrong. And I want to go ahead and share with you my results. I didn't feel a cognitive effect at all. I thought that it was going to hit me with extreme supernatural focus, because that's why these kids use it, right, to get through all of that study and their schoolwork. And it turns out my experience was entirely physical. It gave me energy. It was great. I mean, I kept getting chills. They weren't bad chills, though. They were like chills of energy, and I felt really good. It was not hard thumping energy. It wasn't jittery energy. It was very even, very calm. It was intense, but it was calm. So I felt really good. I felt energized. I was alert, so I was productive, but my memory didn't feel like a sponge. I really didn't feel many cognitive effects at all, if any. So I will state that so far right now, Primaracetam wins in that respect. I feel like maybe even many of the racetams and the racetam family of nootropics is probably a lot more geared towards that. So if you're making a nootropic stack, just as a side note, finding something similar to Adderall, not Adderall if you don't have a prescription. I do not condone the illegal usage of prescription drugs. But there are a lot of offshoot brands out there. If you find something similar, that is probably good as the aspect of your nootropic stack that gives you energy and keeps you calm and alert throughout the day. But you definitely want something else to affect your cognitive abilities, your mental capabilities. That said, I'm sorry that I don't have anything more profound to report. I guess that's as interesting as Adderall gets. Nothing like, wow, I didn't, download every image and bit of information that I saw into my newly crafted cyborg brain or anything like that. It was just, it felt good though. So I don't want to leave you empty-handed. I don't want you to think that I just made a video so I could tell you about some of the stuff I did that didn't work, and then one of the things I did that was only kind of cool. So I thought I'd bring up a topic that I've recently found to be rather relatively profound. It all came from a very mundane situation at work. I work at a restaurant, and at restaurants, when you go to deliver food to tables, in order to keep from standing there going, all right, who had the fried chicken, which is really tacky in a nice restaurant like I work in, that would never fly. The computer systems where you ring in the food actually assigns numbers to every seat that people sit at. And those seat assignments basically are where you put the food, and that's how people can tell who had what without having to ask. So the reason I tell you that story is because the mundane situation that occurred at work was that we had a busboy who had never worked at a restaurant before, so he was unaware of the seat assignment rule. Anyway, so when he would attempt to assist us in delivering food, he would get confused. He wouldn't be able to do it. We would have to send him somewhere else. Couldn't comply with our wishes because he was simply unprepared. And then I taught him about the seat assignment, and then all of a sudden it was like a light switch went on, and he figured he understood, and from there he was much more effective. That's a system that the restaurant has in place, and lots of restaurants have that to elicit higher efficiency. And as you can see, that played out exactly the way it was supposed to. His level of efficiency was here until I taught him that method, that system, and then his efficiency rose up to here, and he was able to actually get more work done. And that started my obsession with this concept of systems. And then I have since run across some other things that really really got me thinking about it. One in particular was an article that I read recently about the density of words. It was about writing. The author of the article was talking about how once upon a time when we didn't have paper and we were actually chiseling words on stone tablets, we had to be very careful about what we wrote. We also had to make sure that the words conveyed a complete message in a very small space. So the words had to be layered, they had to be dense, they had to have multiple meanings, they had to encapsulate a lot more. And then it also talked about poetry. Once upon a time, poetry was actually a system. It was a tool. It was a tool that had built-in self-correcting systems because it had built-in mnemonic devices, meter and rhyme. And the reason why is because the messages that were conveyed through poetry were too long to actually write out or find a way to document. And then to have it travel was even more impossible. So in order to get messages that would last ages and cultures and language barriers, bards and storytellers learned the stories in poetry. Mnemonic devices built into the poetry helped them to memorize them, and then they were able to share with others who memorized them, and the spoken word was the way that messages were conveyed. Now, whenever paper became cheap, poetry became an art. Then we could craft all these beautiful images with adjectives. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's great, actually. It makes life a lot more colorful, but it's not efficient. And we're talking about systems that elicit efficiency. So after reading that article and having that experience at work, I realized that systems can help in all aspects of life, everywhere. So this idea of systems is almost like what systems do is they take large amounts of data and then they compress them. Kind of like a bit.ly URL shortener. Takes a really long website URL and compresses it into a couple of characters. That's almost like what all systems do. They take large amounts of data, and then when you find a way to access that system, you can integrate all the information that that system has access to into your operation and elicit higher functioning from your brain. So with that thought in mind, I've been obsessed with the concept, and I've been really thinking lately about how could I hack my brain even more to integrate more systems, to make everything in my life more efficient. Everything from the words that I speak, the words that I write down, the work that I do, my hobbies, dancing. I really believe that there's probably a lot of ways that I could elicit higher functioning from my brain just through this. This is one of those things that you can't access just by taking nootropics. Nootropics makes the light bulb brighter, but it doesn't turn the light switch on. This is one of those things where once you know the light switch exists, you can go and you can turn it on. How you would get to it, I imagine, would be through some kind of working through thought process, but I haven't figured out the answer yet. I haven't figured out, I guess, the equation. This is just me kind of developing a theory on the concept. But I feel like if I or somebody else were to master this concept, we could learn a lot faster. Because right now, the way it seems like we learn is we go at a new skill with interest, and then we're like in this dark room, and then we're looking for guidance, and that guidance, somebody, the teacher, or the information that we're being presented, whatever medium is teaching us, kind of dims the room a little, and then the light gets brighter and brighter. But I feel like once we know there's actually a light switch in there that you can just turn on and then illuminate the whole room, because all the data has been compressed and all you have to do is consume that compression and then the data is yours, that would make you learn at lightning speeds, and you'd be ridiculously efficient, like you version 2.0. I wish that I could report that I have any idea how to do this, but Like I said, this is just the beginnings of the working of a theory. So I challenge all of you to join me in this quest to find the answer, the equation, if it were, to I guess, hack into your brain and implant systems to make everything that you do more efficient. If you have any experience with something like this, or if you have any insight, I also welcome you to share. But I appreciate you tuning in, and be well.